Good morning. How is everyone? Welcome to Came Parana de Comercio Exterior. Welcome to our daily lectures. Today we're going to continue with our English classes, giving you more templates, more information about how to make a good presentation or how to um, improve the way you communicate. Okay. So, like I said, these are business English for specific purposes, which means that we're going to focus on more than content. We're going to focus on how you produce or how you express your ideas or express the things you need to say. Okay, so let's begin. Today's topic is going to be the style, clarity, and emphasis. You know, how to put emphasis on the things you have to say and how to make it more clear. And just in case you don't know who I am, well, my name is Carlos Martinez. I am an English instructor and also a speaking coach, former team leader at Pacifico University, and currently an EFL instructor at Mater Purísima School, Miraflores. Remember that these lectures, I will be able to follow them in via Zoom and also via Facebook. Okay, so if you have any questions, don't doubt on asking me in any of those two forms, and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. Remember that in Facebook, sometimes the messages arrive a little bit um, with some time difference. So sometimes when I answer them, it's not immediate, but I will try to do them as quickly as possible. Okay, so let's begin. Clarity and emphasis. When we communicate a message, remember that it's important to make sure that people understand, and also it's important to be able to put emphasis on what we want to say or the important information. So we're going to talk about these three things. First of all, clarity, to make sure that the information is clear and everybody understands what we're saying or trying to say. Then we're going to focus on some ways of emphasizing the word that continues our message. And finally, we're going to put emphasis um, on main ideas, of our arguments. So let's talk about clarity and simplicity. Okay, like I said, it's going to be a very quick and simple exposition. Hopefully, the templates that I give you will be able to help you improve the way you communicate. First, in contexts like presentations or meetings, there is a tendency for advanced learners to switch to a style which is too complicated and too formal. Sometimes when we want to make a presentation, we think that the more formal that we are, the more complicated words that we use, the better. But that's not necessarily always the case. I'm going to give you an example here. For example, look at this speech. I'm going to read it. Consumer tastes and fashions are always in a process of change in the global marketplace. And for this reason, in the near future, I think it will be necessary for us to look at the possibility of making some modifications to the design of our range of products in the manner which I have indicated in this next slide, which shows some of the initial ideas on the subject. I mean, it's fine, it's good, but that doesn't mean that it can't be improved. And sometimes we confuse improvement with increase. You don't need to increase, you don't need a lot of words to improve. On the contrary, sometimes you can reduce and transmit the same message. For example, consumer takes are always changing. Because of this, I think we'll have to make a few changes to the design of our products. Have a look at this next slide, which shows some of my ideas. Notice how we have said the same thing using half of the amount of words. I mean, I don't know exactly how many words there are here, but definitely much more than the ones we have here on our right. And we have said the same exact thing. Okay, so now this is much, much better. Okay, we don't need to say a lot just to sound more formal, to sound more interesting, or to sound more intelligent or knowledgeable. No, sometimes we confuse people more by saying too much. Okay, so keep in mind this idea that it's good to use vocabulary, to use a wide range of expressions, but sometimes when we think more is better, and that is not always the case. Okay, so let's go on. There's some ways you can, for example, you can simplify your language. For example, instead of saying you have the possibility to, very simple, you can. Okay. Remember that modal verbs are always formal. So even if you think, oh, you can is too simple. No, by using can, you're giving it some kind of formality. Another possibility. There is a chance that I will. You have the possibility to. It's fine. I mean, there's no problem with these expressions, but you can say it might. Okay, it might. Notice with two words, we're saying we are limiting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words, 7 words. Okay, they have the same meaning. The message is going to be received the same way. I mean, it's not going to be more understandable because you say you have the possibility to. No, it might is more than enough. It will be necessary for us to. Instead of saying this, you can say we need to. Okay, so notice how, I mean, it sounds simple even just to say it, okay? But it has the same meaning. And don't think that because you use these expressions, you're going to sound improper. No, on the contrary. The price of commodities, you can say commodity prices. Another one. A document that shows you have insurance for sports that you practice in winter. Notice, look at the amount of words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 words. A document that shows you have insurance for sports that you practice in winter. Notice how simple. A winter sport insurance department, okay? So notice how it's much easier, how it's much more simpler, how you did not have to say all these words. You traded 14 words for 5, okay? So you always have to try, remember that it's not a matter of just, writing words and many words thinking that's going to improve it. No, sometimes it is necessary. Sometimes, and the people who you're talking to, that's why, again, going back to previous lectures, you have to study your audience, okay? Sometimes they like, you know that this audience likes complicated words and complicated explanations. So it totally depends on that. So you always need to study your audience. Okay. Let's continue. Now, when to use formal, informal, simple, or complex? This is, I mean, I'll say that it totally depends on you. There's a strong trend to clarity and simplicity in business communication. So that's the trend. So remember, maybe in the past, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, the more complicated you sounded, the more interesting that was the topic. But now, no. Now the tendency is for clear and simple ways of communication. Simpler instructions and shorter sentences are easier to understand and have more impact. Business people value directness, and complex languages can sound indirect or worse. Okay, nowadays when you say too many complicated words, people may interpret that you are just, you know, blurping out words just to avoid being asked questions. Okay, so just be careful with that. Be careful who you're talking to. And then, however, complex formal language is not necessarily wrong, like I mentioned before. In some contexts, for example, legal documents or formal reports, it may be actually valued and expected. You always have to bear in mind the company culture, the expectations, and the audience. So it depends who you're talking to. If most definitely, if you're talking about legal things, then your vocabulary will have to be a little bit more complicated and complex. The same as with, let's say, if you have to make a formal report of something or an evaluation, then you're obligated to use complicated words and complex sentences. But those are the exceptions. I mean, normally business presentations need to be direct and simple and clear. You don't need to decorate it too much with too many words. There are other ways of emphasizing that don't include or don't mean that you have to write 100 words to say one idea. Okay, so just remember, how do I decide between formal and informal? You have to study your audience, who you're talking to. Second, you have to know what is the topic, what is the purpose of this communication. Okay, again, Being formal and complex is not wrong. It depends. It totally depends on what you need or want to communicate. Okay. So again, remember that the 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 type of speech or the content that you're going to choose will totally depend on your audience and what you want to transmit. Okay. So there's no right or wrong. It's totally on what you need or what your audience needs. Just be careful because like I said before, notice this part, okay? If you sound too complex, sometimes people can interpret it like, for why is he being so complex? Okay, it might be interpreted in the wrong way. Now, clarity in emails and letters. I'm going to show you two emails. Email one. I have seen your advertisement for office space in the Daily Journal. I could be interested in renting one or two small rooms. I would like to know what the rooms are like, the annual cost, the transport links in the area, and any other information that would be relevant, such as parking spaces for visitors. If the information is right for my needs, I would like to inspect the property. I look forward to hearing from you soon. This is one version. Now let's read another version. Will you please answer the following questions about the office space advertised in the Daily Journal? I am a graphic designer and want to rent some space for myself and a colleague. 1. How much window area is there in each room? Will we need rooms with good light? We will need rooms with good light. What is the annual rental charge? Are cleaning, maintenance, and utilities included? How far is the building from the nearest metro station? Which bus stops? Which buses stop nearby? Is there any off-street parking for visitors? If your answers meet our needs, we would like to tour and inspect the offices. Please let me know how to arrange this. I am meeting my colleagues to discuss this matter tomorrow afternoon and would appreciate a reply by then. The two emails are basically two different versions of the same thing. Okay, two different versions of the same thing. Now we're going to talk about each one independently and tell you, I mean, what could be right or wrong about each one. So let's look at the first one here. What can we evaluate from this email? I mean, it sounds like a normal email. It sounds like everything's fine, but let's look. There's a few things that I can point out. First, it begins very slowly, very, very slowly. I mean, um, you're like, hey, I have seen the advertisement. I could be interested in renting. I mean, are you interested or not? Okay. The writer gets to the point in the second paragraph, but there are no clear, direct questions. I would like to know what the rooms are like, the annual cost, the transport. So the general. I mean, there's no real question. The requests for information are listed together in one sentence and do not stand out. So I'm collocating everything in one big paragraph. Okay, I'm saying everything in one big paragraph. I'm not giving detailed information. And if I receive this email, I mean, how do I answer this? I mean, the close is friendly, but in this context, a standard phrase is perhaps a little old-fashioned. Okay, I look forward to hearing from you soon. It's too standard. Okay, there are other ways of communicating. It's not incorrect. Remember, there are better ways. Okay, there are better ways. I'm not saying anything incorrect. I'm not saying that this email is totally wrong, but we can improve it. And if we compare it with version number 2, now we can point out some things. Notice. It begins directly by stating the purpose, okay? Will you please answer the following question about the office space advertised? I am a graphic designer and want to rent some space. Okay, so I'm telling you directly, I want to rent something. The explanation is brief, but a little bit more complex than version 1, okay? Yeah, it's telling you that my job and what I need it for. Okay, so immediately as soon as I know you want to rent it and why you want to rent it. Now we have direct questions. The questions with an explanation included where needed and are numbered. Okay, question 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 questions. I know that when I answer this email, I'm going to have to answer 5 things, different things. Each question is a new line, and it's easier to answer instead of one big paragraph with many little things, like in the other email where we had many questions in one paragraph. So we didn't know how many questions we had specifically. And finally, look at the close. Okay, it's urgent, but it's not rude. I am meeting my colleagues to discuss this matter tomorrow afternoon and would appreciate a reply by then. Okay, so I'm giving you an answer. A very direct answer. I am not being offensive. I am not being rude, but I am being direct. Okay, please, I am meeting tomorrow with friends, and I need my answer by then. Okay, if the person who's renting is interested in doing business with me, he will answer because he knows that I have a deadline. Okay, so it might sound direct, but it's not. Okay, it's clear and it's precise. Okay, so this is a much better version of the other email. So notice how even though it looks bigger, it's clear. Okay, it's clear. That's why the topic of this lecture is clarity. Okay, the other one was smaller, but everything was just mixed. It was like spaghetti. I mean, everything was everywhere. Here, first paragraph, I'm telling you why I'm writing. My questions, my specific questions, telling you what I need, and how what questions I need to be clarified, and then also finally when I need the information back by. Okay, so in this case, I know what I want, and I'm letting you know what I want, and the person who's going to answer is going to know exactly what to answer. Okay, so again, this is a much better email compared to the first one. And now let's continue. Now, when we want to put emphasis means that you want to focus, or um, 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 you want to clarify that you want to put more strength in a certain topic or a certain part of the information. Okay, this is what emphasis means. That you want to give strength to a certain idea, or to a certain question, or to a certain fact. Okay, so let's start by giving some kind of definition. There are many individual words that can be used before adjectives, adverbs, nouns, and verbs to intensify the meaning. We want to intensify the meaning. Okay, I'm going to give you a little exercise. I'm going to give you a paragraph that I want you to, I mean, you can do it individually, but I'm going to also do it with you here, that I would like for you to read out loud. That means with your voice. Okay, in the first one, I would like you to the word that in bold, the word that in black, I would like for you to read them first without and then with. Okay, in both ways they make sense, but the words in bold give emphasis. For example, I'm going to read it first without. Okay, our business is going well, but it could be going better. The Chinese market is opening up, and I am sure that there are many opportunities for us in that part of the world. It's such a huge market. We can't pretend that we are a global company unless we raise our profile in Southeast Asia. Okay, so now we read it without the words, and notice it's fine, but now we're going to put emphasis. Okay, now I'm going to read it with the words. Our business is going extremely well, but it could be even better. The whole Chinese market is opening up, and I am absolutely sure that there are many opportunities for us in that part of the world. It's such a huge market. We really can't pretend that we are a global company unless we significantly raise our profile in Southeast Asia. Okay, notice how when we pronounce these words, we are putting emphasis. Extremely well, even better. The whole Chinese market. I am absolutely sure. We really can't pretend. We significantly raise our profile. So notice how when you read it, you're like, wow, just with these little words before certain information, we are changing totally the emphasis on the message. Okay, we are instead of saying our business is going well, we say our business is going extremely well. Okay, so I'm emphasizing on well. It could be better, or it could be even better. Okay, so we can improve it. We can improve that. The Chinese market, okay, but if I say the whole Chinese market, I mean all of it, it's 100%. So with these words, we can improve. Now, we just need to take into account something that you need to be careful. Okay, if you use too much of this language, it may sound like you're exaggerating and you're being insincere. Okay, so you have to be careful how we use these words. It's okay to use them, but don't abuse. Okay, everything in too large quantities sometimes, or if something is exaggerated, sometimes can be more it can be a bad thing instead of a good thing. Okay, so just be careful how much of these words you include in your speech. Okay, but again, it's totally different without the words than with the words. Okay, these words give emphasis on what we're saying. Be careful with it still. Okay. Okay, so here, for example, we have two versions of the same thing. It will be necessary for us to, we will need to. Our expectations are that we expect on an official basis, officially, you have the possibility to determine your own preference. You can choose. It sounds funny, but it's true. Verify, check. Requirements, needs. Inform, tell. In spite of the fact that, even though. So notice that both are the same. Okay, so if you again, maybe you can have one form, one complicated expression, one simple expression. Maybe you combine them. Maybe you can maybe your audience is very likes very formal communication, so everything's going to be formal. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you're talking to an informal audience, so maybe you can avoid all these complicated expressions. Okay, so notice how we can say the same thing with a different way. Okay, next, if we want to make impact, short simple sentences call attention to their content. Long complicated sentences take time to understand. This is clear. This is key. Okay, you need to give short simple sentences to be able to transmit your idea and to be able to capture the attention of your listeners. If you give long complicated sentences, it's going to take time to understand. Okay, if so, you want to make an impact, go for short simple sentences instead of long complicated ones. Okay, next, separating points. In writing, use numbering or bullet points. This is true. That I mean, always use numbers or use bullet points. This makes your message be transmitted in an easier or more simple way. But when you talk, you're not going to use bullet points. So you're going to use first of all, secondly, third, and finally, for example. Okay. So there are many ways. If you talk, these are ways of you of separating the points that you are expressing. Okay. So remember, if you're writing, use numbers or bullet points, and if you're talking, use the expressions first of all, secondly, third, fourth, fifth, and then finally. Okay, these are ways of making your expressions have more clarity. Okay, remember the important thing to understand here is clarity. Okay, so we separate it like this, and well, this is a review of the first part. Okay, so just choice of language depends on the context and the audience. Okay, it's important to know, okay, this is a report or an email? Is this a formal or informal presentation? Okay, the level of the readers or the listeners. Okay, so how am I going to express my ideas? Okay, which one am I going to use? Again, it depends totally on who is listening to me. Okay, who is um, who is paying attention to me, who I am talking to. Okay, so it totally depends on this fact. Okay, very good. Next, now when we want to put emphasis by identifying the following word. Okay, so when we can use very, extremely, for example, extremely successful. Okay, or we can use the expressions far, considerably, much, significantly, even, for example, much cheaper, considerably cheaper, significantly cheaper. Okay, so we are putting emphasis on the following word. Now we have fully, totally, completely, absolutely. I'm fully aware that. Okay, I am totally aware that, or I am completely aware that. Then we have the expressions the whole, the entire, the whole process, the entire process. Actually, okay, which doesn't mean like actually in Spanish. Okay, be careful with that. It has a totally different meaning. It actually reduces our costs by 5%. Then we have the expression absolutely, no, or at all. There is absolutely no hope at all of, okay? Then we have really, okay? We have the expression really, we really can't, and whatever the message is. Then we have such a, it's such a complex issue, okay? It's such a complex issue. And so, which is similar, right? The difference with such and so, it's that after such we write after such we write a noun, and after so we write an adjective. Okay, so the issue is so complex. And then we have emphasis of an idea. Okay, we use the expressions above all, in particular, mainly, mostly, principally, predominantly, particularly, and specially. And of course, and at the end, specifically. Okay, so in one, we are going to put emphasis the um, on the um, on the word that follows, and in the other, we are putting emphasis on the idea in general. Okay, so remember that. Let's see. Thank you. Um, yes, we can use these expressions to put emphasis on what we want to say. Okay, because I can say he is successful, but if I say he is extremely successful, then I'm putting emphasis on the word successful. Or like if I can say I agree, or if I say I totally agree. Okay, so I am putting emphasis on the word agree. Or for example, it matters, or you can say it actually matters. I mean, it really, really matters. So with these expressions, we can put emphasis, and we can put we can give clarity to our messages. Okay, we can give importance to whatever we want to say with just one word or two words. Okay, so this is like we mentioned before, and in this, all of this is related to the topics that we have been talking about our presentations, about our discussions. Okay, um, but here we have included both verbally and writing, because when we communicate, um, whether it is speaking or whether it is writing, there are ways of expressing ourselves that would make things easier to understand. And that is what clarity means. We want our listeners to totally understand what we're saying. We don't want them guessing of what we're saying. We don't want them trying to think, okay, what did he say? Or maybe misinterpreting what we've said. Okay, because or misunderstanding what we've said. Which is totally different. When in one you understand it in the wrong way, and another is that you 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 interpreted it, you had the wrong idea, and one is you understood it totally wrong, totally opposite. Okay, so it is relevant. So please take into consideration the following topics. Okay, the following things that we mentioned before. Okay, using words, you can use these expressions to intensify the emphasis that you're collocating on the words, and the ones on the right to emphasize ideas. Okay, when you want to, for example, you collocate them above all, and then your idea. Okay, or principally this. Okay, and you give the idea. So in one, it's about ideas in general, and the other on the left is about words. Also, like I mentioned here before, when you want to make complicated language and simple language, you can use expressions like the ones here. It will be necessary, requirements, or you can use a simple conversational language that are here, where it says we will need to, we expect. Okay, so again, be careful what you choose, because like it says here in the slide here, putting emphasis is important, putting emphasis is relevant, but you need to make sure that you don't overdo it. When I say overdo, I mean that you don't collocate 100. I'm exaggerating. 1,000 um, formal words just to sound more clear or more important or more intelligent. No, on the contrary, people sometimes believe that, okay, you're speaking complicated because you don't want me to understand, so you are not being honest. Okay, and this happens, and I'm pretty sure everyone has been in a lecture where you hear the speaker just talking technical things, and you're like, why am I? Well, I mean, not everybody's going to understand this. Why is she doing this? There are two reasons. Maybe the person doesn't know what he's talking about, or he's just being complicated to avoid being asked questions. Okay, to avoid somebody say um, touching a topic or making questions that he won't be able to answer. So they interpret that the person or the speaker is being insincere. Okay, so it is very, very important to make sure that even though we want to sound intelligent, even though we want to sound smart, it is not, do not abuse the content of emphasizing words that we have. Okay, make sure that you use just the right amount, without exaggerating and without sounding um, that you are not being sincere and that you're not being honest. Okay, so it's important to take into account these things. Okay, so again, if you have any questions, remember we will also mention emails. Notice how we have two different types of emails here. One looks better because it's smaller, and one looks more maybe not good because it's bigger. But if you evaluate, if you now that I have explained to you the differences between the two emails, and now that you can see it side by side, you can see that this one, even though it's larger and longer, it's more clear and it's more specific than the first one. Okay, this one is too short. This one is too, everything is collocated in one single place, and no. Okay, and here's an example of using numbers and bullet points to make your emails look more, especially more professional. Okay, I tend to use bullet points a lot because it directs you exactly what you want to say. If you collocate it, this is good for informal letters, for when you're talking with friends, when you're talking with family. This is fine, and still for a working email, it's still fine. But this one, the one on the right, is clearer. It's more precise. Okay, so again, I'm not saying that if you write an email like the one on the right, on the left, it's going to be wrong, because grammatically it's fine, context is fine, but it's too general, too vague. Okay, whereas this one on the left, it's clearer. It's clearer. Okay, and to finalize, remember that we mentioned before, there are many ways of expressing the same idea. In this case, we are notice how we can say with 2 or 3 words instead of saying 5 or 6 words. We can make it simpler and we can make it clear for the person who is receiving the message. Okay, so I would like to know if there are any questions. Maybe you can ask me questions through Facebook or through Zoom. Remember that the only purpose of these classes are to try to improve the way you communicate. This is not about this. Okay, if you communicate yourself like this, that doesn't mean it's wrong. If you communicate yourself by saying it will be necessary for us too, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But you can make it simpler by saying we need to. Okay. Again, if you think that we need to is too simple, then you can go for it will be necessary for us too. It's not a matter of which one is correct or incorrect. It's just a matter of trying to remember, like we mentioned before, like it said here in this slide, the trend is to be clear and simple and direct. Clear, simple, and direct. Okay. If you beat around the bush, then it sounds like you're not honest, and it sounds like you don't know what you're talking about, and it sounds like I shouldn't trust you. Okay. But if you take it too far, then it's going to cause the same feeling. Okay. If you say too many complicated words, then it's going to be like, why is he being so complicated? Okay, so please make sure that you take into account all these things that we have mentioned today. Um, Remember that this is with the only purpose of helping you improve the way you communicate. But again, if you, like I always tell my students, if you have a way of communicating that serves you, that allows you to communicate, and you've never had issues, and people understand what you're saying, continue doing it. I don't want you to change. I don't want you to change something that a pattern that has been helpful and suitable for your needs and your work. But if you think that some of this advice could help the way you communicate and could help the way you interact with other people via speaking or writing, then please try it. Okay, then please try it. Okay, so it could be a good way of expressing yourselves and communicating yourselves. Okay, so if you have any questions, I'm open to listening to your questions. Like I said, I try to follow your comments via Facebook and via Zoom. If there's a way of me answering you and of me helping you improve the way you communicate, then I'll be glad to help you out right now. Okay. In case there is Um, Nothing more than you, I mean, well, here the question is simple. Just to close the lecture. Um, what is going to determine the way you communicate? First of all, like I said, is your audience, who you're talking to. Second is your the investigation or the research that you have done. Okay, you must have evaluated what these people like and how they communicate, the level of knowledge of the people who you're talking to. If you're talking to professionals, maybe you can use fancy words, but if you're talking to students or you're giving lectures to maybe just regular people, then using fancy words is only going to cause confusion. And fourth, another most important is what works for you. Okay, please, I mean, I don't want to change, again, I just want to make, or just put, I want to put emphasis on the fact that I don't want to change the way you present or the way you discuss. I just want to help you make it better. Okay, I just want to help you make it more understandable. I want to help you make it more clear. But if the way you have been communicating until now has served you well, has worked fine, then continue doing what it is. Maybe you can add a little bit, one or two of the things that I mentioned, but it's going to help you most definitely. It's going to help you most definitely. There is no way that you can use some of these tips and your way of communicating will decrease. On the contrary, it's only going to help you. Okay. So if there are no more questions, thank you for your attention. Again, these topics are to improve the way you communicate. And the next topic on Saturday is going to be about how politeness helps our speeches, and how sometimes it's important to soften some expressions, okay? We don't want to be so too offensive sometimes. So the topic of Saturday is going to be, again, style, but focusing on politeness and softening the way you send the message, okay? Um, in the whole, all these topics are based on one thing: how you are perceived by others and how others perceive you. Okay, so I hope you have a great Wednesday. Please stay safe. If you need to go out, please take all the necessary measures. Remember that COVID has still not disappeared. On the contrary, many new cases are appearing. So please take care. Wash your hands. If you go out, and you touch something, don't touch your face, don't touch your eyes or your nose or your mouth. Um, Wash your hands regularly. Use alcohol. Clear your shoes. Take a shower. You know, all the necessary measures we have been taking since March. Okay, so even though it's almost Christmas, some things are still the same. Okay, so please be careful and stay safe. My information, as always, you have it here. My email account, okay, my WhatsApp, and my LinkedIn account in case you want to ask me any questions. I'll be happy to help you out. Take care. Have a great day, and I will see you on Saturday. Bye bye.